So as was stated before, I get to work in church marketing, which is a really fun way of saying I work in evangelism's cooler younger sister that snuck out a few times. So church marketing is really fun because you get to try new things, you get to fail, and like the younger sister that snuck out a few times, you get caught sometimes. But you learn a lot. This is not what I thought that I'd be doing with my MDiv. If you would have asked me when I graduated seminary, so you're going to go do church marketing in social media, I would have said, what? I just got a call to be a pastor. I'm pretty sure I'm like an indentured servant to a conference now. And I see, some of you understand. But I had a great conference. Shout out to Carolina Conference. So evangelism and marketing, like was already stated, are so deeply intertwined. And that's something that I didn't realize until I got into church marketing. And what I learned from church marketing also applies to evangelism. And what I learned with my MDiv and my undergrad about evangelism also applies to church marketing. So together today, we're going to dive a little bit into social media marketing for your church, because that is where I spend the bulk of my time, and I do mean the bulk of my time. I have seen Sprout Social in my dreams. If you're chronically online like me, then you might know that the Adventist Church and its associated organizations may not have the best reputation. In fact, there's a lady on TikTok called, and I looked it up to double check today, the Knitting Cult Lady. Everyone has a niche, I guess. And she actually semi-frequently will talk about Adventists as she believes that they're a cult. So in this foray, we step. Most fundamentalist religions, like Adventism, whether it's like a traditional Baptist or a Pentecostal or anything that has a bit more fundamentalist feel, is going to have a little bit of a struggle culturally on social media. So what do we do? How do we step forward? How do we step into this space in a way that is meaningful, in a way that is healthy? And where do you start? How do we share our unique view of Jesus through Adventism on social media? And it's something that I've had to wrestle with a lot here in my current role as the social media team, or as part of the social media team for the NAD. And I know some people here are like, Casey, it's not that bleak. You're painting this bleaker picture. Or some of you are like immediately overwhelmed and you're like, you know what, Oscar, continue to do your thing on social media for all of us. And some of you might be saying, listen, I don't know. I'm really overwhelmed. I don't know anything. Help. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I want to challenge you that whatever the reputation is, we've already pointed out one of the most key pieces, and that is start where people are. Start from their perspective. Start from their viewpoint. Start from your audience. As a theologian and a marketer, there's this key little piece. And you know this because you do it every time you preach. You have your points, your pericope, for those of you who remember that word. And you have this point and you're like, okay, I need to get it to across to the people. And most of us are trained to start from the people's perspective and then walk them towards your point. And marketing is no different. You start with your audience and then you work them towards the organization. You start with the customer. A lot of times in Adventism, I think we have this perspective that we need to start with the product, the church event, the organization as a whole, whatever, our picture of Jesus, this product that we're selling, we say, okay, we're going to build a bridge backwards to the people. But actually, best marketing practices, and I would dare say best evangelism practices too, will tell you you start with the people and you build a bridge back to the product. So how do we do that? What does that mean? If we start with the product, we usually run out of time, energy, and resources long before we reach the people. And it leaves this gap that not everyone can jump safely. And here's the reality. You can't just pick any audience when you're picking an audience to minister to. You have to start with an ideal audience. In marketing, they teach you that you have to pick a very specific audience. And the reality is not any of us is going to appeal to everyone. There is no one person in this room that can appeal to every single audience, and that is why God calls all of us to minister together So maybe Oscar can reach someone that you can't, but maybe you can reach someone that Oscar can't. And that is why we are all called to share Jesus in real life and on social media. So pick an audience, but what does that mean? How do you pick an audience and then build a bridge from that audience back to your congregation? Who are you trying to reach? What specific people group? Is it young families? Is it unreached secular middle-aged professionals? Is it Gen Z and boomer-like Christians? If blue-collar people who grew up going to church but don't anymore are your audience, but your church is upper-middle class business and office professionals, how might that audience feel in your church? And I know a lot of us here have this thing, I want to reach them all, I want to reach everyone, and that's beautiful, but the reality is not everyone will fit in every church. Not every audience is built for your church, and your church is not built for every audience, and that's okay. Larger churches may be able to handle sub-audiences, but most of our churches are less than 100 people. So, you have your product, and you have your audience. Where do we go from here? I had a friend come to me recently. She started working at an Adventist elementary school, and she said, hey, Casey, I know you work for the division, so you have to work for me for free and volunteer your knowledge. And she's like, we want to market our Adventist school, and we want to create a social media profile and start promoting it, and can you help me? Let's get you on a Zoom. Let's talk to the school. Let's do all these things. And I was like, hold on. Does your church have the budget for more than one teacher? Can your church school handle more students? Are you prepared for the investment that what if it does go really well and you have this influx of students? Is the conference prepared for that? When we start from our audience perspective, it changes the lens with which we view our product. If we're viewing our product the same way we always have, we're going to miss things that will be important to the audience. Can your church handle your ideal audience? If, like one of my churches when I was pastoring, you want to attract young families, and every single other person in the church is over 55, nothing wrong with that, save me, the pastor, then it might be good time to look at what you are able to accept. If every Sabbath, and I don't know if you guys say this, I was born and raised in the South, so if every Sabbath is like pulling teeth to get someone to teach the children that may or may not show up, then maybe young families is not your ideal audience. Or maybe your product should have a second look. If 85% of the church is quite conservative or quite liberal, then it may not be a place for younger, more progressive, or conservative, fresh Adventists to join. And most importantly, if your church members can only tolerate one type of audience, no matter what type of audience that is, then it's time to not just look at the audience, but to look at the product that we are selling. We're building bridges between our audience and our product, and I know that's the hardest part. I know it's easy for me to stand up here, who makes TikToks and Reels for a living, and tell you how to fix your church and what you should be doing for your life. But the reality is, I've been there, I know. When I was pastoring, I hated coming to these things, sorry, Jose, because there was always something new that I was supposed to be doing or that I wasn't doing right or that I should be doing, and there was all long lists, and I was just trying to keep my church members from yelling at each other at a board meeting. So once you pick an audience, you can't market something that doesn't exist. The picture of your church that is in your mind has to really exist. And when we look at it from our audience perspective, it has to really exist. And if your church is unprepared for the people in your community, it's time to look at the product. Now, some people here, I'm going to pause this again. Some people are going to be like tweeting, they're already on Twitter, they're already emailing some of these publications. Casey said we need to change Adventism, and that's not what I'm suggesting. What I am saying is that when we change or adjust, it should be the people and the cultures of our local church and even ourselves. If we're going to reach people for Jesus on social media and in real life. An example of this, an excellent example actually, is Charlotte Tilbury, the makeup giant. I know all of you know who that is. Charlotte Tilbury is what I would consider an upper middle class sort of makeup line. It's not cheap, right? A lip gloss, a lipstick is $30, $35. An eyeshadow palette, a small one is $60. A full face is like hundreds of dollars. This is not a makeup brand who markets themselves for everyone, right? Some of you are looking at your wife's Amazon purchases right now. So this is not a makeup brand who markets to everyone, and that's okay. While we want to market to everyone, let's look at what they did. Their brand package is gold and neutrals. As you can see, they market themselves as a luxury good for the middle-class market, and for good reason. But recently, I got an ad on my TikTok from Charlotte Tilbury that really shocked me. Recently, this highbrow, pun intended, some of you won't get that till later, feeling makeup brand has collabed with a remarkable and unsuspecting partner. And that is Genshin Impact, a video game. They weren't lying when they said social media is no longer the frontier of marketing. In fact, when Michael, who's around here somewhere, part of our social media team, came to me, he's like, Casey, social media is not the future of marketing anymore. It's streaming. And I was like, right, yeah, for sure. He's like, no, you don't understand. All the big companies are going, and now they're marketing on streaming services like Twitch. Video games are the future of marketing. And I didn't believe him until I got this ad on my TikTok. But he was right. And now a major luxury brand, or middle-class luxury brand, is teaming up with a Gen Z video game to reach a new niche audience. And some of you didn't catch that. This major luxury brand sold to millennial and older women has changed the way that they look and package themselves to reach a new audience. And what was the result? Hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. Vogue cited them as the #1 makeup company for 2025, due in part to the success of their partnership with a video game and streaming platform. So what does that have to do with us? Why do we even care about that? Charlotte Tilbury did not change their products. They did not change their products. They changed the packaging. If you look actually in that packet for that specific item, they created one new item or two new items, and the rest were filled with items they already had in their marketing line. And when we're going online to talk about Jesus, our specific view of Jesus and Adventism, sometimes we have to build a bridge from an audience backwards and realize that maybe we need a new package. I'm only going to use one Bible passage here because this is intended to be a TED Talk and not a sermon, but here it is. Jesus repackaged himself, which is not a typical way that we hear that said, but it's the truth. Hebrews tells us, therefore, he had to be made like his brothers in every respect, so that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in the service of God. When we're focusing on our audience, when we're approaching social media and sharing Jesus online from their perspective, when we look backwards at our product, we will see very clearly if it looks like Jesus or something else. And we may be forced to change our packaging. God changed the package his product was in to reach a new audience. He didn't change. He adjusted for us. And when we are having our local church, our beliefs, our events, our organization on social media, we have to start with the people. Jesus became like us, and in turn, to share him accurately on social media, we must become like him. If we are starting from the audience perspective and building a bridge back to our product, we have to realize that we too are the audience that builds a bridge back to the product, Jesus. And if we are bad marketing for Jesus, then maybe it's not time for us to be on social media. In truth, all of our outreach has to start from the people's perspective. From the type of events we do to the way that we market them, all of our social media posts, we have to look at them through the eyes of the person that will see them, not from the eyes of the organization or the local church. While it may not be doing a collab with a video game, who knows, maybe one day we'll get there. If you're going to jump into social media marketing and sharing Jesus online, know your audience. Know your community, the IRL one around your church, and the online one that you seek to reach. And a metaphor a bit more accustomed, perhaps, to this audience. If we are called to be fishers of people, it's time to look at our hooks, our fishing rods, our nets, our bait, and our boat. And most importantly, to ask ourselves, do we even have the master fisherman with us to reach the people? Thank you.